presentation of what we are about in charter schools, and I think Dr. Perry, in reading his bio, I think he will find that he is in good company. One of the bios that I was sent to read it talks about him as revolutionizing education in America. And it starts by saying Dr. Perry's heart pumps passion and produces positive change. And I think that all of you would agree in this room that that's why we're here, because we have a heart for children and we are about producing positive changes. Many of you may have found that Dr. Perry has been featured in CNN's Black in America series, and he is one of the most talked about educators in America today. He is the founder and principal of what the U.S. News and World Report has cited as one of the top schools in America, which is Capital Preparatory Magnet School in Hartford, Connecticut. Out of respect to his request to be brief, I will let him come in and tell you more as he shares with you his story. But one thing I want to leave you with this. It talks about how Dr. Perry is in a heritage to transform education, to transform the community. He was born into his family's third generation of poverty on his mother's 16th birthday. And he believes that your life success is determined by where you end and not where you start. So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Perry, and it's indeed a pleasure to have him. Let's welcome him, please.
I'm going to come down there. People say I look bigger on television. Y'all need smaller TVs. Thank you so much for having me here. How dare you have those beautiful kids in front of me. You try to make me look bad. Give it up for one more time, please. I also should add to my bio that I am officially one of Connecticut's newest charter school operators. We will expand our school next year as a charter school. I know folks have been accusing me of being a charter school operator for all these years. Now they're right. We're going to have some fun this morning. And I'm not sure why you did not elect this brother governor, but I think you missed something. Give it up one more time. I mean that sincerely. We're going to have a conversation. When I say we're going to have a conversation, we are really going to have a conversation because we're at a time in ed reform where we are required to put aside the past and look upon this new day. It's so easy for us to look at the ties, the things that break us up as opposed to the ties that bind. I believe that we're in a position now to transform our country. The opposition is losing. I'm going to call it what it is. The teachers' unions are getting whooped. And I'm telling you because the truth is making itself known. Everywhere there are good schools, there are great long waiting lists. We are not ever going to lose a fight because the opponent is strong. It is because we don't fight. Unfortunately, our side, the ed reform side, is too polite. But I'm here to tell you, as somebody who grew up in poverty, that ain't nothing polite about being poor. Ain't nothing cool about it, ain't nothing friendly about it, ain't nothing nostalgic about it. Anybody who looks back on poverty is a fool. Amen. A big block of cheese that'll stop you up well into adulthood is not a good way to start life off. Cans of meat, boxes of cereal that just say cereal on them, that's not cool. We have to have an honest conversation because here we are in the great state of North Carolina where some of the lowest performing schools in America are. I just watched children speak 4 languages, so I know that it's not the kids' fault. When you dare them to learn beyond their circumstances, they will. When you push yourself to run excellent schools, they will be excellent students. See, our enemy in the circumstance that we find ourselves in at this point in American history is not the enemy. The enemy is our friends. The enemy is our eye to the past where black people thought that the only people we could believe in were black people or Democrats. And we elected and elected. Every single time one of them came and told us that they had our back, we elected them again and again and again. Only to look up and find ourselves exactly where we were before. We have found ourselves focused on the politics of race in ways in which it makes no sense. We are looking at a set of circumstances that we didn't put ourselves in by ourselves, and we ain't going to get out by ourselves. We have to understand that in order for us to help our children, we have to create new habits. I'm reading this book about habit forming. And in the text, it talks about a part of the brain called the basal ganglia. And the basal ganglia, it says, is the part of the brain in which habits form. So a habit cycle is, there's a cue, right? And then there's an action, and then there's a reward. Cue, action, reward. Right? Or they call it a ritual. So you wake up in the morning, you do the first thing you always do, whatever the first thing you always do is, you do that first, right? And then there's a reward, whatever the reward may be. And it talks about how habits form subconsciously. In fact, it talks about a couple studies out of MIT in which people who've had memory loss maintain habits. Who had severe head injuries maintain habits. It talks about how what the mind begins to do after a while is once it can put a habit in place, it actually decreases its activity. So that it becomes automatic. So you automatically start to do certain things. So you don't have to think about it. You chew your food when it's in your mouth. You don't think about that, it occurs. You walk without thinking about walking. Well, these habits make themselves plain when we look at individuals. And habits, by the way, in that section of the brain, have no value. They're just habits. They're not good or bad, they're just habits. They're something that are automatic. They just happen over and over again. Well, organizations have habits as well. Neither good nor bad, just habits. Well, I submit to you that one of the problems that we face, especially when we're educating children of color, is breaking the habit of seeing these children as poor little kids. There are those folks who would call themselves liberal, who would say, I understand. And as they understand in that most patronizing voice, what they're saying is, look, Chief, you ain't got to learn this. This is too hard for you. We're not going to ask you to learn a different language because you can barely speak the one you have. We're not going to ask you to do your homework because you come from a single-parent household. We're not going to ask you to come to the school on time every day because we know it's hard getting out of bed where you come from. We're not going to ask you to do the very things that we would ask our children to do, to form the habits that are necessary to make it successful in life. No, 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 no. We're not going to ask you to do those things. We're not going to ask you to think of yourself as a smart person. No, no, no. You don't have to do that. We're not going to ask you to imagine yourself beyond the place where you find yourself now. These are our friends. These are our colleagues. These are some of your best girlfriends and some of your friends that you have over to the house. And they will tell you, and they mean it from the bottom of their soul, they will talk to you about how poverty is at the root of the issues in the educational system. If we could just cure poverty, then we will take care of everything. And they will explain to you, they will put data up, and they will tell you that if you really, truly believe in children, then you must first take care of poverty. And year after year, we accept that crap. Year after year, somebody gets up on television and acts like they got the trump card, right? You called 3 books, and all of a sudden somebody comes out with an ace that you didn't know somebody had. That's a little stage reference. Somebody explain that to the rest of the group. You don't always play the same games. But what happens is these are our friends. And when our friends are the ones who are harming us the most, we are most likely to be harmed. We have an obligation to run amazing schools. See, because every single time a charter school does something just a little bit wrong, it's a federal offense. Let somebody take a pencil home. They will bring the FBI to your house with all 3 networks outside and the resident blogger right behind, accusing you of some form of malfeasance. Let your scores go down 1 time. Let them drop for 1 minute. Let a kid go throw a rock at the water behind his house and break the surface. And watch and see as somebody takes a picture of him in your uniform and puts it out there. Let one child decide that he doesn't want to be at your school anymore. It's just not his lifestyle. He'd rather not go to school 8, 9 hours a day. He'd rather go to the traditional school where he can just go to school when he kind of feels like it. And then you're kicking kids out. You're creaming from this imaginary neighborhood that they think all the smart kids were hiding from them in. If you let these fools tell it any single time one of us does one thing wrong, everybody did something wrong, and everybody needs to be shut down because of it. Not some of us, not most of us, every single one of us. And they would tell you, they take that little stupid Stanford study and they'll say, look, you don't even outperform us. Read the study, Chief. It says we beat you. Read the whole study. Not the whole thing where it says African Americans, Latinos actually do better in charter schools than they do in other schools. Yeah, read that part. The kids that don't do better are white kids. Okay. And? These same people will, on the one hand, accuse you of creaming children. Then, on the other hand, when your kids outperform them, well, wait, let's say it differently. They'll say that you somehow picked these kids from somewhere that nobody else could find them. But then when you have low scores, they say you can't educate. They will harangue and harangue and harangue about how they don't have enough money, and if they just had more money, they would run better schools. Meanwhile, y'all got half of what they had. And in some cases, less because they have beautiful facilities that, oh, by the way, you paid for. And that the state is paying twice for it, not just paying for the kid to be in that school, but the kid to be in your school too. Not one person in this room has an option of running an average school. Nobody does. The deck is stacked against you. You do understand that. The deal is that you actually have to beat them with less money. You have to run a longer school year, longer school day. You have to offer things that are going to pull kids away from a school that in many cases is a beautiful facility. We built, look, nowhere in the world does anyone build schools like Americans build schools. Our schools are something special to look at. I mean, you're talking about technology that's breaking out when we're building the school. When you go to some of these amazing facilities, you look around and think, man, when you cut the lights on, they go on? You have guaranteed heat? Okay. Give me some heat, I'll tell you what, watch out. We don't have to have our kids get on a bus or a van or get a ride to a ball field so they can practice. We started our school is a magnet school, so it's a public school, but you know, anything different than the traditional they don't want, right? So we had to have our kids, true straight, had to walk 3 miles to this really raggedy gym to practice basketball. And that was okay for them. It was okay that our children walked through the most dangerous neighborhood in the Northeast at night. It was all right. It was their fault for picking our school. We don't have the option of running schools that are just okay. We have to form habits within our buildings where we challenge our colleagues. Yesterday morning at our roll call, we have to call it a roll call because it can't be a meeting because we have a teachers union that says that you can only have 2 meetings a month. And if you have more than 2 meetings a month, ranging for 120 minutes a month, you have to pay them overtime for each minute after that. So we have to call our 15-minute conversation before the start of the day, roll call. Welcome to my house. So during roll call, one of the things we discussed yesterday was how I'm not okay with the fact that even at our school, my teachers can't seem to find gifted black boys. I'm confused. It confuses me. Because I got a lot of them. So you don't miss them. There's a lot of them running around. But the people at our social justice school, our magnet social justice school, that just so happened to be founded by a black person who might be light-skinned but is very jet black inside. I'm confused why I have to say this yesterday. And I'm confused why I have to say to them, if by day's end, I don't see names of lots of black boys who might be, my family's from North Carolina, and my grandmother used to say, Mike could. Who could be gifted. Somebody's behind is about to get thrown out of here. So I want to make everybody clear. I don't care if you make names up. I don't care if you fake me out. But by the end of the day, I better have names of black boys that you think Mike could be gifted. These are our friends, folks, and we have to create new habits because my teachers, as good as they may be, they have some bad habits. They see the little boys acting some kind of way. They think that says something about their intelligence, and it doesn't. Not at all. And so I have to remind my colleagues that they need a new habit because the old ones will get them unemployed. See, this is what we're talking about. We have to push ourselves. Just because somebody is black or Latino, that does not mean that they understand where our communities come from. Y'all got to stop hiring people because they look like us. I know I ain't supposed to say this in front of white people, but they ain't going to tell nobody. Because if they do, we all know who they are. And we know it's one of them, and we will find you because we let you in on the conversation. But you're just as guilty. Somebody comes in with some sad story about how they came up on the rough side and I didn't want to help out. Look, homie, you got to show me some credentials. You come in and volunteer, holler at our kids anytime you want. But I'm going to tell you right now, you can't come here and play with these children because it's not a game. If you'll come in and teach science, you better know how to teach science. Because I'll fire black male physics teachers fast as I'll fire any other teacher. Faster than you can say Jackie Robinson, they will be dust. See, because we don't have an option to mess up. We just don't. The political climate is too treacherous. If you do it one time, get one teacher in there who does one stupid thing. Just, you know the ones I'm I'm talking about too. Say something to a kid and she's like, man, what? For real? Who you have to say, come here, close that damn door. Serious? You don't have an option to be average. You have to form new habits. You have to. You have to encourage your colleagues to look beyond the circumstances that they're typically looking at and see them differently. If they don't see them differently, they cannot change their habits. That's the cue. The cue and the reward need to change in order for the ritual to change. That's the point. Our problem is we keep looking at the problem the same way. We can't bring the failed mindset of failed schools to our schools. We have to be fiscally responsible in ways in which some of our schools have not been. Some folks, man, y'all need to learn how to add. And subtract, too. When you spent it, that's minus. I gotta be 100 with you because I ended up having to defend your behind. And guess what? I'm not gonna do it. You mess up on this money, you mess up with these kids, you on the other side with me, dude. I'm gonna step away from you. Nah, Chief. I'm not on that team. Look, I'm for people making mistakes, but if you do something you ain't supposed to do, that's on you. We can't let you take the rest of us down. You got too many people busting their behinds to make sure there are more charter schools, not less. And the last thing that we can afford right now is somebody who doesn't know how to act like they have people's children and the city's money on their side. We must hold each other accountable. I know how we play with numbers. We talk about growth all the time. 10% growth, 20% growth. Growth from what? What's the number you start with, Chief? Because we got to get up to mastery. Majority mastery. Anything less than that, we're not getting it done. That's just a fact. Third graders should be able to read it. I don't know, the third grade level. Real revolutionary concept. Which means in order to make that happen, you have to form new habits. You have to realize that 4-year-olds can read. That the children in North Carolina are manufactured the same way that they are everywhere. They make them the same way. Trust me. Which means that we have to raise our expectations on top of already high expectations. See, the politics of education actually are the only thing that's going to bring this country together. It really is. For the first time, I believe, in any recent history, we have people from all sides of the political spectrum all on one page. It's not like you think it is. Long gone are the divisions that we used to see on this issue. There are absolute right-wing Republican, Tea Party, what have you, who are for school choice. There are black nationalists, liberals who are for school choice. There are Volvo driving, stay-at-home moms who are pro-school choice. School choice is here, and it's not going anywhere. We are in a game that we're actually poised to win. Let me be clear. We are in a game that we're actually poised to win. If you look around this great nation of ours, you will see virtually every city, especially large city, losing thousands of students. Thousands. Cities like Detroit went from 160,000 children in 2000 to 50,000. Chicago lost 100,000. Philadelphia, 90,000 during that same time. Gone. Gone. Most every major city is losing children, and there's no other explanation for it, but the parents just got sick and tired of sending their kids to raggedy school. That's it. There's no other explanation for it. There's nothing else that explains it. There are no migration patterns that explain it. There's no employment education. It's the only thing. Meanwhile, every single time a good school opens up, thousands apply. Remember when the unions used to tell that old lie and say, well, the other kids are not going to know which schools to pick? Said differently, y'all too stupid to know what a good school looks like. Because that's really what it means. Well, apparently the streets have been talking. And every single good school, they don't need to look at your state test data, they just know. They just know. This year, our school has 4,200 children on the waiting list. We printed no brochures. We ran no commercials. We did not put up a billboard. In fact, I didn't go to the open house because I forgot. In the past 2 years, almost 9,000 applications have come to our school. In fact, of the 21 magnet schools in Greater Hartford, of the 21 magnet schools, 22 including us, it would take 13 of them to equal just our first choice applications. So one would think, hey, I bet you your local political leaders can't wait to open up more schools. You have one of the top performing schools in the country. School has an international reputation, been visited by folks from all over this country, North Carolina just last week. I bet you think, why wouldn't they? Considering the school district's only got 20,000 people in it, so you got almost 20% of them applying just to one school. I mean, hell. And I'm going to sweeten the pot for you. Then up the street, there's a traditional school in which 2 children in the 8th grade are reading, writing, and doing math on grade level. 2 total out of 50. So I'm sure you're thinking, hey man, that new school you opened is probably just 2 blocks up the street from you. It is not. The teachers' union fought violently to make sure that our school did not expand. The reason why it didn't expand is not because the teachers' union fought violently, but because the Board of Education members were just punks. Just scared. Unwilling to acknowledge the community's very clear voice. They folded, they tucked, and ran. In fact, it was their idea to expand us. They came to me. Couple text messages to them, couple emails to them, couple blog posts about them, and all of a sudden they say, well, maybe we shouldn't do it. Our allies are our greatest enemies, because we do not participate in the process of politics. One of the strange experiences we have with working with ed reformers is so many of us are practitioners. We just want to get in the classroom. We just want to get in the building and do our work. We don't want anybody to bother us. We don't want to bother anybody. We don't march to anything. We don't want to go out and send any emails to anybody. We don't call anybody. We just want to go to school. Matter of fact, that's why some of us left the traditional schools, because we didn't want the politics. We just want to come in and run great school. Wake up, folks. Wake up. The other side is spending millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, to make sure that our children are forced into failure for the rest of their natural lives. They don't care if your child ever learns to read, write, or compute. They just don't care. They just don't care. And they don't have to. The reason why they don't have to is because we don't make them. We need a new habit. And that habit has to be that we have to become politically active. Not just voting for who we want. I'm talking about real politically active. Putting up our own candidates. Putting ourselves up as candidates. Running for local offices. Most of the ed reform that you need could take place right on your local school board. Almost everything that you want to happen could happen in some form just if some of you ran for your local school boards. And or put together a slate from your church, your mosque, your synagogue. Whatever it was that you wanted. Just get a couple. All you need, some of the boards only have 9 members. All you need is 5 of them. The habit that we have, unfortunately, is to stand back. And just hope. Hope our lobbyists can get up there and just, make them feel good. The reason why our schools are not funded is not because the law isn't there, because the law is there. It's because we, the citizenry, are sitting back. We let them tell those lies about us, talking about how our schools don't outperform theirs. We let them tell the lies about us. They take the anecdotal experience of somebody who did something nefarious with something, and we let them make that into our rule. The one kid who decided to go back, or the one school that sent some kids back, all those things, right? They don't tell about the other side of the story. When the school districts were dumping all their students in our schools, when they were literally going through and finding IEPs and just pushing those kids to our schools, remember that? See, they don't want to talk about that. See, we know how it really went down, but you know what happens? It stays in this room. All that information stays in this room. And they get to jump on the story. And they get to create the national narrative. They get to tell the lie. And people begin to believe the lie. When we were putting forward this proposal for this charter school, they said that I stood to make $2 million from this school. $2 million. The other figure was $15 million. A newspaper asked me, can you explain to us how you're going to make $2 million off the school? They asked me as if it was so. I said, what are you talking about? I'm not going to make $2 million. I'm actually taking a pay cut. And one would think that that would be the end of the story. But on Wednesday, when we went before the State Department of Education, one of the questions I had to ask was, please explain to us how you're going to make $2 million. I don't even know how you respond to something so outlandish. Ma'am, I try to be polite. Because I don't understand. I mean, what do you say? Might as well say I'm 6'10" with blonde hair. Like, I don't know how you do it. I mean, I'm just not. Can't you see? But I had to answer this question. You know why I had to answer this question? Because our side was silent. While they were pumping the community full of these lies, having black and Latino people mad and scared. They're taking our school from us. They're taking our Title I money. They're taking our special ed money. They're taking our transportation money. No one said, hey, look, Chief, let me explain something to you. Here's the IDEA. It says money follows the child. So no matter where the child goes to school, that money's supposed to go to them anyway. Ain't supposed to stay behind. So what's your money to start with? We don't tell them that. We don't say, you do realize you got to transport this kid no matter where they go. And their parents are taxpayers, so you still have to pay. And we don't say, well, nobody sends more kids out of school than the traditional urban schools. Y'all got the highest dropout rates among anything that's called a school. And then among the ones you don't have that you've dropped out, you put them out on third-party build organizations all the time. These not-for-profit organizations that provide half-day services for these children, yeah, that's what we're talking about. They don't talk about that. And you know what? It's because we don't ever put that information out. Our habit is to just lay back and hope that people know the truth. Well, they don't. If you ask most Americans, if you ask most people in North Carolina, what's the difference between charter school and local traditional school? I bet you 99 of them get it wrong. And some of them probably work for you. is that we are not doing our job. A, we have to run amazing schools all the time. And B, we have to fight to make sure that the truth is out there. These new habits will help us get to where we need to be. There is no reason why we should be slowing the number of charter schools. It should be increasing in double every year. The data is very clear. Parents say, that's what I want. I want one of those. Can I get one of those? We hear parents who are mad about your waiting list. So who are they mad at? You. They don't understand that you're not the one who made the waiting list. They think that the reason why the child has been on your waiting list for 5 years is because you won't let them in. The union told these parents that I wouldn't let their kids in. And some parents who lack the sophistication that they need to make a good decision got up and said just that. He's keeping our kids out of school. Look, this sister said, you didn't let my kid in 2 years in a row. Me? I'm here trying to get you behind another school. But because we haven't been pushing that information out, they don't know any better. See, so much of our conversation is focused in the wrong place, and the reason why we're not getting the level of uptake that we need is because we're focusing on the wrong issues. We have the wrong habits. We spend so much time talking about the parent who comes up in pajama pants and the halter top.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, and she doesn't have a bra on.
Oh, my God, yes.
And it's never the one who you want to be walking around like that has it. So all day, every couple minutes, you just do like this, like you just saw a ghost. Or we talk about the father who comes to school with his pants lower than his son's. Or this old behind man with gray braided hair, you thinking, gray hair's not supposed to be braided. You need a grown man haircut. We spend the time talking about the 1-2% of the kids who act a fool in the school. We spend all that time talking about them and how they act up and where they came from. We spend the time talking about the opponents who are out there doing these things to stop us. These habits are the problem. Because we know we can educate that woman's child or children. And just a brief commercial break. Ladies, I know Chanel doesn't make rags. She's never going to make a rag that you can put on your head. That wouldn't, Louis Vuitton doesn't make them either. Unless there's, even if there is a fire, you're not come out of the house with a rag on your head. Under any circumstances, it is not allowable. This is where we spend our intellectual capital talking about these things, this low-lying fruit. But we need to focus on our new habits of making sure that we hold our colleagues to the highest of expectations, both inside our building and outside. Within our network, we need to make sure that we are the first ones when somebody says, you know, can you support me in having a charter school? Yeah, I'll support you if you show me you have a good plan. You show me you have a great team. You show me that you put the work in to go and learn how to do this, not just decide you want to do it because you want to do something different with your life. We'll help you expand your charter network if you can just show us the ones that you have right now running well. Sure, we'll do that. Not just because there's an RFP for them and you feel like, you know, we have the person who writes good grants and we'll get more. It can't be that. We have to hold each other to a higher standard because every time we stumble, the rest of us fall. Get involved in the politics of it. Have the conversations. Contribute to campaigns. You must. Be somebody that these legislators know they need to listen to. Because right now, the NEA and AFT are the only ones they're listening to. And then here's the last part. People of color. Hold organizations like the NAACP accountable for their absurd stance on charters. Who in the hell is against an entire type of school? How are you against an entire class of schools? Just against them. Just out of, just no. We got no job, no. But it's just, no. But it's, no. Who would do that? What thoughtful individuals would look at data and say, even the ones that are doing really well, we're not supporting them? Any one of you who's a member of the NAACP owes it to yourself and the organization to push back on a platform that has been bought and paid for by both teachers' unions. The platform was written by them. Their National Education Forum is completely sponsored by them. But they're supposed to represent us. That's not cool. At least let there be a dialogue. At least let there be a conversation among the membership to say, well, you know what? The reason you're against charter schools is because you have no idea what you're talking about. You ask most people who say they're against them, how many of you visited? None. And then some will even be so bold to say, and I've never gone. I've never gone to a Catholic school. I will never go to a Catholic school. My sons will never go to a Catholic school. I'm not against Catholic schools. I look at the data, and quite frankly, they're some of the best performing schools throughout history. Everywhere they've been, anywhere in the world. That's just fact. You don't have to like it, but it's true. We need to get our story out there. We need to get our voice out there. Otherwise, what we're going to have is more of what we've had. And the real sad truth in this is that our school is but one of the schools that are waiting us. All schools that are good have waiting us. And what that means is behind every single data point, there's a child. A child who's willing to come here and perform on their vacation. A child who's willing to go to school on Saturdays, who's willing to come to school at 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. and stay till 8 o'clock at night. Because if you know, like I do, the kids who are the hardest headed, they're the ones who want to leave the school the least. You can tell, no, Chief, we ain't got school today. You sure, mister? So I'm just saying, I don't like this in school. I know. It's the school part about it that you seem to get. We have kids from neighborhoods and communities that people say do not want to learn, who are waiting to get into your school, to wear one of your uniforms, to learn 4 languages, to be pushed beyond anything that they've ever been pushed into in their lives. These children are the truest of Americans. In this country, founded on the notion of equality, where our greatest symbol is a gift from another nation that says very clearly, bring us your poor, tired, huddled masses, yearning to breathe free, with an implicit promise that if you bring us the most needy, we will pull them together as a nation, and we will educate them beyond their circumstances. Dr. King said that a school should be so good that it should educate a child so well that you do not know who their parents are. Dr. King also said that he supported school choice. People who talk about Dr. King don't ever actually read anything the man has ever written. Little book he wrote before he died called Where Do We Go From Here? Community Chaos. In the education section, he talks about something called education parks. And he said they should be built before the community is itself integrated, to bring children in. Sound like anything you've ever heard of before. In this nation of liberty, a land of steady habits, steady habits have to dare us to dream in ways we've never dreamed, to look at our allies differently, to encourage them to look at the problem differently, and to believe that our children deserve more than they've ever gotten before. Because those of us who are in the schools know this is it. The generation coming behind me is tough. If you are not afraid of what's coming next, then you're out of your mind. In this nation, when we pledge allegiance to a flag, we pledge with the notion of freedom. The only true freedom is education. The only true freedom is to learn yourself. When we think of what it means to be smart, we say that child is bright. When a person studies a lot, we say they're enlightened. When we describe God himself, we speak in terms of light. The light that is in each and every one of our children needs to be lit. And the only way to light that light from their soul to the heavens is to create new habits today. Thank you so much for your time.